Morning.
Good morning.
So, we're talking about relationships this month.
I just want to make sure it's working because last time it did that, it wasn't working. Oh,
Yep.
it's working.
Good. All right. So, talking about relationships this month,
Yeah.
and we thought we would end this month's discussion on relationships with one of our favorite books, one of our favorite authors about relationships. So, John Gottman and his wife, Julie, and then there's a couple of other people involved in this particular book, but John and Julie are researchers at the University of Washington, and they have done decades of research on relationships. They've written several books, and
Mm-hmm.
they are, if there's any such thing as the science of love, they're it.
They're the
They're
experts.
the experts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, anyway,
So, 8 dates. It's about eight kind of specific conversations that you should have with your partner to really hit those areas that sometimes create some conflicts. And some of it, one of the dates is actually about addressing conflict alone. Um, we were actually reading this a little bit last night, and I had it open, and the page I came to was one of the great marriage myths is that if you never fight, then that means you have a good relationship. And that simply isn't true. Like I don't really like the word fight because it's not really a fight, but sometimes those conversations can be kind of heated. And I was telling him last night, I was like, I've never fought with somebody so much in my life besides him. And it's not like we have fights, but we have a lot of like hard conversations, and like he'll call me out on stuff, and it's like, that doesn't feel good, but I kind of get it. I don't want to admit I get it, but I do admit I get it. And same with him. Like, I'm not afraid to tell him if I feel like something he's saying or something he is doing isn't in alignment with our relationship. And those are hard conversations to have,
mhm.
but they're so important. They really deepen your connection to not only one another, but I think also to yourself, because you not only find your voice, you use your voice. And when you're in a safe place that you can do all that, I think that's really a magical relationship.
Yeah, I think it is. I think having the hard conversations, and they call them hard conversations because they're hard, right? And um, but people avoid hard
Mm-hmm.
conversations. So
They don't
then
feel good.
the Gottmans have an idea about, they call it the four horsemen of the apocalypse,
Mm-hmm.
and these are the things that tear apart relationships. And if you don't have those hard conversations, the things that tear relationships apart start to grow. Things
Mm-hmm.
like criticism,
Mm-hmm.
or the worst one, the absolute death nail of a
Mm-hmm.
relationship is contempt,
Mm-hmm.
but also defensiveness. So if you're having a hard conversation and you become very defensive about it,
Mm-hmm.
well, what, like, I'm just going to turn the table. Like, what do you mean? You never do that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're not talking about that right now. I'm trying to have a conversation about something a little different than that. But if you get defensive, that doesn't move things forward. Or if you just shut down and I'm not even talking to you. Well, that's stonewalling, and that's the other horseman of the
Mm-hmm.
apocalypse.
Yeah.
And so, by really deeply communicating, you actually build a relationship. And the Gottmans have this sort of seven pillars, or actually they call it the relationship house. And there's these pillars and the walls and the rooms and everything. But one of them is building a love map.
Mm-hmm.
And previously we talked about the five love languages, which is a different author, different book,
Mm-hmm.
a great book. But that's sort of what that love language thing is talking about when you're thinking about understanding deeply what love means to your partner. And the problem is we tend to project what love means to us onto our partner. And that's where a lot of miscommunication comes from.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, I was listening to you, so
Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, but I've been soliloquizing, so I thought I'd stop talking
Oh,
for a
okay.
minute, let you talk.
He always does that so abruptly, like, there's like no lead in. So then I'm like, well, I was listening to
Wait a
you.
minute.
Do you have a question?
Wait a minute, is that criticism?
Things are about to get kind of heated here, you guys. No, so what we've done in the past, I always like to talk about action steps, right? What we've done in the past is when we have a date night, and date nights don't always have to be about going out, going places, doing things. I mean, I think that's great too. But sometimes date night involves staying in and picking up this book and doing and then one of the chapters, since we've done it before, it's not the next chapter, but one of the chapters, and sitting down reading it together. And there's actually questions in there and things to help you start those conversations as well. So I think that it's a really great map or tool to open up those conversations. Maybe you're in a newer relationship and you're like, well, we don't, we agree on everything. And
Yeah, you do it first, right?
Yeah, you do.
Because you're blind, right?
Yeah,
Love is
because
blind.
there's specific hormones that
Yeah.
make you blind to anything that
Yeah.
might be a trigger. So I think this book is a great way to kind of dive into those hard conversations and really deepen your connection with one another. Maybe even before those conflicts start. So I think when you have that foundation and you have the ability to communicate with one another, because it's better to communicate in a fashion where you're diving into a chapter and having a discussion where you're both kind of from a calm place, in a vested place, like we're going to do this tonight, as compared to then it makes it easier, I should say, to really utilize those tools you've learned when you're in a heated conversation, if you've done it from a place of calmness.
Yeah. So, I just mentioned building a love map, trying to understand your partner and how they think about love and connection and relationship. Another thing is nurture fondness and admiration. Nurture fondness and admiration. I think that's a really profound thing. And there's in one of John Gottman's books, there's a very interesting story. He's talking about this couple, and they're just in conflict, and they've decided that they're gonna divorce. They're just done. And he says, "Well, I'd really like to have one more visit with you because I'd like to understand something." And so he asks his question. He says, "Okay, I've got it. That's fine. We're done." And the two people say, "Well, what do you mean you understand what's going on?" He says, "Well, you two have never really committed to each other." He said, "Well, what do you mean? We've been in therapy. We've done this. We've done the other thing." Yes,
Married.
but you don't turn towards each other. You always turn away. So this idea of turning towards each other. And so as an example, if you're comparing your partner to some external individual, that's turning away. It's like, boy, I wish my wife was more like, so-and-so. I wish she did such and such. Well, you can't tell what a relationship is from the outside, right? I mean, if I describe our relationship, it'll be a very different description than her description. So we don't even know what our relationship is, right?
How do you?
So how could you possibly? And so this idea that we've made a commitment, and so we're turning towards each other, and we're accepting influence from each other, and we're trying to solve conflict gently, and we're trying to make each other's life dreams come true, which, by the way, Elizabeth just graduated. Congratulations. A life dream.
A lifetime goal in the progress.
Yeah, I mean, she's
Yeah.
she's an RN with about I shouldn't say 1,000,000 years of experience because that would make her older than she is, but a whole bunch of experience. And now she just got a BSN and a launching pad for perhaps other choices she might make. But so that's been a long. She was originally going to become a BSN originally, but then kids happened and all kinds of things. Life gets
busy, and it's always easy to put that thing on the back burner.
So but we as a family had to help facilitate that and help her create that dream come true. She worked her ass off, but at the same time, we tried to support her. We as a family tried to support her and help her with that goal, make time for it and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, helping people make their life dreams come true, and then creating shared memory or shared meaning. So whatever meaning means to a couple, like, it might be their religious meaning, it might be their business meaning, it might be just some philosophical meaning, but creating a shared sense of meaning in the relationship. So there's sort of this real way to foster a relationship. The science has been done, the studies have been done, the roadmap has been created, and if you're interested in creating a relationship that isn't just living together,
or being side by side on the hamster wheel.
Yep, side by side.
Which happens. I mean, that's going to
part of it.
happen. But yeah, being aware and intentional with your relationships. Your relationship really is your greatest tool for self-growth, I think. If you can really lean into those hard parts of the relationship, the difficult conversations, the things that feel uncomfortable, the shadows in your partner reflect, a reflection of the shadows in you. Like, if you can work through all that, there's just the pressure of it just brings out such beautiful changes, I think.
People so often they think they need to go off. I need to go off to find myself. There's a whole the old
you need to show up to find yourself.
Yeah, you need to show up to find yourself.
You need to speak up. You need to
and a close partner who's over you. We're no longer in lust, we're in love, and somebody who's going to call you on your bullshit, that's how growth happens, by having your stuff called out and being willing to accept influence from your partner.
Yeah. Right? Yep. It's really because I can speak all I want, right? I can speak up, say things, but if he isn't also stepping up and, absorbing some of that and listening instead of, the criticism or the stonewalling, if he isn't doing that, or if he does do that and doesn't absorb and listen, this doesn't work either. So that's really important, because I think if that continues to happen to you, you just stop speaking. You don't speak because it doesn't matter. Right. And then that's where the break happens, because you stop speaking, and maybe 5 years, 10 years later, you haven't spoke up in your relationship. You're no longer vested in your relationship. You left 10 years ago. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's just an example. The other day I was, in a surly mood, and we were in the car, and I said something that I don't remember what I said, but it clearly wasn't very nice. And I got called out on it. Elizabeth said, hey, blah, blah, blah. And I said, you know what? You're right. I'm sorry. I need to monitor myself more carefully. That was really unkind. I don't even remember what it was at this point.
I don't either. But I do remember the conversation.
Yeah, but I do remember. I remember that in that moment, it was really important for me to own it, take ownership of it.
That's what it's all about.
Just this morning, Elizabeth has a habit of, like, if I say, "Hey, can I come with you?" She'll say, "I don't care."
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, if you want to, yeah, great.
I don't care. And for her, it's like trying to leave room for me. But
if he doesn't want to,
if I don't want to, but I ask, so obviously I want to. So I would prefer, and we talked about just this morning, I would prefer that she said, I'm just trying to do a quick errand. I'd like to go by myself. Or, hey, I would love it if you came. Either one of those, but I don't care. Really? You don't care? That feels awful to me. So the very next thing, it was happened to be taking our son Lincoln to work.
To school.
I said, well, do you mind if I come? And she said, I'd love it if you come. Excuse me, I'm trying not to cough.
Yeah.
I'd love it if you come. And, well, God, that feels a lot better than I don't care. Right? So listening to each other and leaning in.
Yeah, and then exercising those things you learn. That's really the last step. Because even if you're, open and listen, and yes, I'm sorry, but the behavior never changes,
Right.
Guess what? That doesn't work either.
Right.
So it's, relationships are hard. They really are. But
Relationships are hard, but they're also your greatest asset. Or
Your
they should be.
greatest tool.
They could be, they
Your
can be,
greatest
they
tool.
should be. Yeah, your greatest tool for personal growth.
Yep. All right. Well, we're 16 minutes in.
Yep,
So.
I think that's a great place to stop. And thank you guys. It's fun being here. It's fun having the opportunity to talk to you guys. And we'll see you next month because it's already the end of the month. So next Friday.
It's the 28th.
Yeah.
Next Friday.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Have a good day. Bye bye.
Happy Friday.
Yep.